You walk into a restaurant in Paris, order a Coke, and the waiter hands you a glass with 2 ice cubes floating in it. 2, you ask for more. He looks at you like you just asked him to put ketchup on a croissant. Now flash to literally any gas station in Texas. You fill a 44-ounce cup 3/4 of the way with ice, and then you add the drink. Not the other way around. Ice first, always ice first. This isn't a coincidence. This isn't Americans just liking things cold. This is the result of a 200-year-old business empire, a Boston ice tycoon nobody remembers, a refrigerator arms race, and a marketing trick that worked so well you don't even know you fell for it. By the end of this video, you're going to understand why a glass of ice water became one of the most American things on earth, right up there with the flag and bad gas station coffee. And you'll never look at your drink the same way again. Here's the part that surprises most people. This is not normal. Globally, it's actually the exception. Travel almost anywhere outside North America, France, Italy, Japan, most of Eastern Europe, and drinks show up cool, not Arctic. Couple of cubes if you're lucky. Often, none. Ask for more ice in a London pub and you might get a single extra cube, dropped in with visible reluctance like the bartender is rationing gold. Meanwhile, in the United States, ice isn't a garnish. It's a structural component of the drink. Fast food cups are actually engineered by beverage companies, with the ice-to-liquid ratio already calculated before you even walk up to the counter. Hotel hallways in America have ice machines humming 24 hours a day. Grocery stores sell 5, 10, 20-pound bags of the stuff by the front door, right next to the firewood and the propane tanks. A historian named Jonathan Rees, who literally wrote a book about the history of refrigeration in America, put it simply, ice in drinks is, quote, very much an American thing. Nobody on Earth competes with the U.S. for sheer per capita ice obsession. So the real question isn't, why do Americans like cold drinks? Everybody likes cold drinks. The real question is, why did this one country turn ice into a full-blown cultural identity? The answer starts almost 200 years ago, with a guy who, frankly, should have his face on more T-shirts than he does. In the early 1800s, a wealthy young Bostonian named Frederic Tudor looked at a frozen pond in New England and saw something almost nobody else saw. A product. Specifically, he saw a way to sell winter to people who didn't have one. In 1806, Tudor started cutting massive blocks of ice out of frozen lakes and shipping them, by boat, to places like the Caribbean. People thought he was insane. Shipping ice to the tropics on a wooden ship with zero refrigeration technology in the middle of summer heat? It sounded like setting money on fire, slower. But Tudor figured out the engineering. He packed the ice in sawdust for insulation, built specially designed ice houses at the destination ports, and slowly, painstakingly, made the math work. By the time his ships reached Havana or New Orleans, most of the ice had survived the trip. It worked. And it didn't just work, it became an empire. Tudor's ice business eventually employed something like 90,000 people. He shipped ice to the Caribbean, to New Orleans, to India, even, and this is the part that should be a movie, all the way to Calcutta, on a 4-month voyage, just to prove it could be done. People started calling him the Ice King. Not as a joke, as a literal job title people respected. Here's the cultural twist, though. Ice wasn't just useful in America. For a while, it was fashionable. Wealthy Brits in London were importing ice harvested from Norwegian lakes, dropping a cube or two into champagne at fancy parties, basically flexing on their neighbors. For a hot minute, Europe was just as into ice as America. But then something happened. Or rather, didn't happen. The European ice trade slowly faded out by the late 1800s. It got expensive, supply chains shifted, and, crucially, The habit never became baked into everyday culture the way it did in the U.S. Ice stayed a luxury flex for rich people at parties, then quietly disappeared from the conversation almost entirely. Meanwhile, in America, ice kept growing, because America had two things Europe didn't: brutal regional heat and a business class that was about to turn cold drinks into a national infrastructure project. By the mid-1800s, something else was happening on the home front. Even before electric refrigeration existed, American households were already adopting the icebox, a wooden cabinet cooled by a literal block of ice delivered by the iceman, refreshed every few days. This wasn't a luxury appliance for the wealthy. It became a normal household fixture across the country, decades before most of Europe even considered it standard. So, picture this. By the time mechanical refrigeration and the modern electric fridge rolled out in the 20th century, Americans had already spent generations building a habit around having ice constantly on hand at home. The refrigerator wasn't introducing a new behavior, it was just automating one that already existed. And the automation came fast. American homes adopted built-in ice makers and electric freezers far earlier and far more widely than most of the world. Today, it's almost strange to find an American fridge without an automatic ice dispenser built into the door. In huge parts of Europe and Asia, that's still considered an unusual, slightly excessive feature. There's also a less obvious piece of this. Air conditioning and ice grew up together in American culture, especially in the South. Historian Raymond Arsenault has written about how ice and air conditioning together transformed the American South, not just comfort-wise, but culturally and economically, turning brutally hot regions into places people could comfortably live, work, and build cities year-round. Ice wasn't just a drink garnish. It was part of an entire infrastructure of "we have defeated the heat," and Americans built an identity around that victory. So now you've got a country that industrialized home refrigeration early, normalized constant ice access, and tied cold to comfort, modernity, and progress. That's the foundation. But the thing that really locked it in, the thing that made ice non-negotiable, came from somewhere you'd never guess: the fast food counter. By the 20th century, ice wasn't just convenient, it became a business tool. Soda companies and fast food chains realized something simple: ice is cheap. Astronomically cheap compared to soda syrup. So a cup that's 70% ice and 30% soda costs the company way less to fill than a cup that's 100% liquid, while still looking like a full, generous serving. Combine that with the psychology. A drink absolutely packed with ice looks colder, fresher, more refreshing, even before you take a sip. It's a visual cue your brain reads instantly. Frost on the cup, ice cracking, condensation dripping down the side. That's not an accident. That's decades of beverage marketing training your brain to associate loaded with ice with premium and refreshing, when really it's also just cost efficiency wearing a refreshing costume. This is why American fast food cups are designed the way they are. Wide mouth, made for scooping ice in fast, built around an assumed ice-to-liquid ratio baked into the cup's actual volume. The whole system, from the cup shape to the soda fountain nozzle height, assumes ice goes in first, and it worked so well that it stopped being a marketing trick and became a baseline expectation. Ask any American what a proper soda looks like, and they'll picture a cup stuffed with ice. Take the ice away, and the same drink suddenly feels wrong, flat, warm, somehow incomplete, even if the liquid itself hasn't changed one bit. That's the quiet brilliance of it. The marketing didn't just sell a product, it rewired what normal even means. This is the part Americans abroad genuinely cannot wrap their heads around. Why, in 2026, with refrigeration technology available everywhere on Earth, do so many countries still treat ice like a rationed luxury? A few theories, and they're not mutually exclusive. 1. Climate. Much of northern and western Europe historically had milder summers than the American South or Southwest. The need for aggressive cooling simply wasn't as constant, so the habit never had the same evolutionary pressure to form. 2. It never got industrialized into the culture the way it did in the U.S. Remember, Europe's ice trade in the 1800s was a luxury fad for the wealthy, not a mass infrastructure project. When it faded, there was no deeply rooted, ice is normal habit left behind to inherit. 3. And this is the one food writers love, perceived value. Some writers have pointed out that Europeans often see ice as just taking up space. Real estate in the glass that should be liquid you paid for. Meanwhile, Americans lean toward a more is more mentality. Bigger portions, fuller cups, more bang for your buck, ice included. And here's the twist. It's not that other countries can't get ice easily anymore. Refrigeration is everywhere now. It's purely cultural at this point. As one ice historian put it, it's simply not the norm. Not because of scarcity, but because of identity. The same way some cultures default to sparkling water and others default to flat, warmish drinks versus ice avalanche drinks is just a fork in cultural history that never reconnected, which is exactly why this keeps going viral on social media. Every summer, you'll see another wave of Americans traveling to Italy or France, getting a single ice cube in their Aperol Spritz, and filming their genuine emotional crisis about it for TikTok. It's not really about the ice. It's two different definitions of normal colliding in real time, on camera, and the internet cannot get enough of it. So let's connect all of it. It started with one ambitious guy in Boston, turning frozen lakes into a global shipping empire. It got locked into American homes through some of the earliest, most widespread household refrigeration on Earth. It got fused with comfort and progress through the South's battle against brutal heat. And it got permanently cemented by an entire fast food and beverage industry that realized ice wasn't just refreshing. It was profitable, and it looked generous while saving them money. None of that happened anywhere else in quite the same way. Not because other countries are wrong about ice, and not because Americans are right. It's just a domino chain of history, climate, business, and marketing that happened to fall in one very specific direction, in one very specific country. So next time someone hands you a glass that's 80% ice, you're not just holding a cold drink. You're holding 2 centuries of frozen lake shipping, refrigerator marketing, and southern heat survival, all compressed into a gas station cup. Let's get into it.